you and I both have a background in music. You're a music producer, and I've had my time performing in bands as well. But we'll get to that later on. So I'm really interested in how you got started with it. For you, what was the first song, album, or artist that you remember really liking? And it's not just when you went, this is okay, I can listen to this all day, but something that made you go, wow, this is my jam. I really like this.
Mhm. Ever since I was a young child, or ever since I was a baby, I've been listening to music. I've been liking music. I was forced into the drums, I guess, and listening to rock songs like Dire Straits or Eric Clapton and different types of guitarists. Uh, Maybe even I think who is that guy? The guy from the Tarzan movie, singer from the Tarzan movie,
Phil Collins?
Phil Collins. There you
Oh
go.
my goodness.
Oh, his music as well. Um, I grew up with those, and I knew that there was something about rock that I liked, but it was Paramore in my late teens, no, in my early teens, where I felt like this was my jam. Like this is something I wanted to do. I wanted to make music like this.
Okay, how old were you when you first decided, okay, I really like this sort of stuff?
I was around, yeah, 13.
Early
I was
teens.
13 when
Mhm.
this happened. Yeah, early teens.
And
And I think it was That's What You Get. That was the song that was playing because it was playing on the radio. It was playing on MTV, and it just got stuck in my head. And I said, "Hey, I want to try it out. I want to play it and see how everything, how every part of the band is done." So there was the lead guitar, and I tried to do the rhythm with the rhythm section, and then the bass guitar, and I was like, "Wow, it makes a great harmony in my ears." And I was like, "I didn't know you could do that." Because for me, when I heard lead guitar, I'm thinking, Joe Satriani, and I'm thinking like Steve Vai, and these guys are lead guitarists. But the way progressive rock or punk rock or alternative rock was played, it's more of strumming as a
mm,
lead rather than you know picking and plucking and stuff.
yeah, so it's more about the feel of the song. It's like they use power chords, so there's more like the chugging sound that you get from it when you strum the guitar really just
Right.
aggressively.
And it's
Uh,
really playable. It was playable for people. And people could just follow along, and if they wanted to take the guitars and follow along, they could do it. It's just that easy.
so basically, you got started with pop punk. That was your first genre that really spoke to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So 13 years old, man, when I think back to my own, it was Sweet Child of Mine by the Guns N' Roses. And this was when I was really young. I think it was around 3 or 4 years old. I remember just hearing it while riding along the car with either my uncles or my dad. It would just get massive airplay on the radio. And it was a good song. Um, I didn't know it back then, but I was really into that type of music. Things like I think Guns N' Roses were a mixture of classic rock, a little bit of punk, a little bit of hard rock. I think. I hope I'm not getting the genres mixed up. But for that specific song, it was really upbeat and it was catchy. And for little Andre with a 3-year-old brain, it was pretty good. And I asked this question because I've noticed that people tend to become aware about music and what they like from it at different ages. I always thought that it would be the same for everybody else around me. But then you realize, well, no, you get exposed to music and then you get to decide what you like at different points in your life. Who are some of the people that really played a huge role in you liking the music that you like? Who would you say?
Ah, that's a good question. I guess the guitarists of Paramore, uh, Josh Farrell was his name. He's
Mm-hmm.
no longer part of the band, but he had this way of visualizing a song, and he's usually the part of the writers of a song, other than Haley Williams, the singer.
Mm-hmm.
He would
Do
do the
you
musical arrangement.
do you remember if you have like any friends or family who were directly responsible for exposing you to these sorts of music or different types of music that you decided to be like a part of your thing, the sound that you look for?
Oh, yeah, I think it was my dad that he exposed me to everything like that. Like he was the guy who said, you should get into drums. You should, there's no drummer in the family. You should start listening to this to this type of music.
So your
And
dad wanted to start a band, so he made you the drummer, basically.
yeah, well, there was a comedian that said the firstborns. By the way, I am a firstborn. And the eldest in my family, and the firstborns are always the projects. Like they're the ones that where the father goes, you'll do this and you'll do that. You're my drummer. You're gonna be this. You're gonna be that. And then I never became any of those. But
Okay.
I did become some of those. You know, he made me a drummer. Like he bought me a small drum set when I was younger, and I listened to the music that made me listen to, and I got into them. But I didn't really get like the hype that he has when he was listening to it, and it was because it was songs from his time.
Okay.
The songs from in my time were um, Red Jumpsuit Apparatus or My Chemical Romance, and these guys were the rock of my era.
So
And his
talagang
era
punk
was like,
ano? Pop punk talaga yung
yeah, that was
nagustuhan mo.
those were the days, high school days, man.
Mm. So what about now? So that was you then, but what about now? What do you think about the music that your dad exposed you to? Has anything changed for you?
Well, I think if he didn't introduce the songs to me then, I wouldn't be the person that I am now. Um, in the way I play, not in any instrument, whether it's a piano or a guitar or drum, the drums, it's just so much more variety that I can appreciate. There's so
Mm.
much more genres that I can appreciate because he introduced me to those genres at such a young age. Like, who would have thought Toto is something that someone like me could appreciate now? I mean, you mentioned Toto to any kid on the street, and they'll be like, "Who's Toto?" Like, but when you hear the song Africa, it's like one of the best songs out there. It's a classic, and everybody still knows that song until today. But if you ask a kid, the millennials today, who is Toto? No one knows. Who is this? What is this Toto?
So
Is
basically
that like a chocolate?
it's helped you appreciate music more from
It
different genres,
it
different
has.
eras.
It has, and not just rock, man. It made me appreciate jazz, helped me to appreciate, R&B, soul, pop, 80s music. Oh my gosh, I love 80s music.
What kind of
You
80s
consider me
music? There's
80s?
like different kinds of 80s. You got the synth pop, you got new wave, you got hair metal.
Well, mostly stuff with synths. So yeah, synth pop
Okay.
and new wave. And I think that's what led me to liking, and getting into electronic music. And I guess Owl City is the first person first artist that I listened to that kind of got me into that. Like there's elements of bright sounds, and then they're not organic; they're synthetic, and it's so cool. And I knew that some of them were already done in the '80s, and they're just bringing it back now. with with the technology today.
So basically, your dad set the foundation for you appreciating the music you do now. Does he
Yeah,
appreciate the same stuff that you listen to now?
I wouldn't say fully appreciate. Like to him, it's just the same chords going over and over again. I mean, that's the thing. That's the thing with music today. With electronic music, it's basically the same four chords in the chord progression, repeating over and over again for the verse, refrain, and the chorus. And before there was like so many different chords and key changes and this. It's amazing what they did before, and they didn't even have computers and laptops.
Is it fair to say that the stuff you listen to now are more on the mainstream side of things, versus like stuff you may have listened to before?
I would say yes, mainstream mostly. Maybe because I'm exposed to it more now because of Apple Music and Spotify. But I mean, I'm just trying to whatever catches my ear, and I think mainstream has already done that.
Okay. Well, from my side of things, it's like my dad was my primary musical influencer, and then, like I said, my uncles. My dad first exposed me to like old school rock and roll, Beatles. You got Elvis. Dito naman sa local side, si RJ Jacinto. Um,
Mm.
he even exposed me to jazz and a little bit of classical music, pero none of those really got to me in the same way that rock like Guns N' Roses did. My tastes have changed a little since then, obviously. We all mature as time goes by. Pero the reason I ask this is because I'm so interested in how we develop our musical tastes and how that relates to the people around us. Uh, so for you, it was your dad, and then eventually kind of found your way, right?
Right, yeah.
And
Maybe a little bit of my aunts and then maybe my mother as well. And here's a fact.
mhm.
Most people don't know this, but when you're a Filipino, your mother will ask you to sing a lot of songs.
Okay,
So I was introduced to a lot of pop songs in the time, but like very, very high pop songs. And I was asked to sing Regine Velasquez, Geronimo, um, Rachel Ango. Who's that famous one? The one with Disney,
Lea Salonga.
Leia Salonga. These songs. They also helped me. They didn't help me vocally, but they helped me to appreciate those kinds of music, contemporary kind of ballads and then soft songs as well, not just the hard rocking music, but also the ballads too.
Oh, that's a little odd, man. It's like you would think that if you constantly sang, you would see some improvement in your abilities, but I don't know. I can't speak for you, but me, no matter how hard I try, I just cannot sing. I have a voice made for silent film. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think mine broke when I started singing. Mine was like, hey, I was telling my voice like, hey, come on, you gotta sing because people are watching you. It's karaoke time. And then it was like, no, yeah. It's like, no, you can't sing. You gotta keep yourself quiet. Nobody should know that you exist.
Okay, so, well, how do you discover music now? Because previously it was influenced by the people around us. What about now?
Well, like I said, Apple Music, um, Spotify, uh, the radio section, and the radio tab. I always go to Pure Pop. The Pure Pop um, channel. That's me hear some of the latest. I don't really Google any of like hey, what are the latest songs today? No, I just let it play while I'm maybe doing some work, and I happen to hear something that I really like, and I just check it out and see who the artist is, and then do a little more research on that.
Okay. I do some of the same things as well. So I used to be on Spotify, and then I switched over to Apple Music just so my wife and I can have the family plan and get a little bit of discount there. One thing I've noticed though is that Spotify is just so much better at recommendations than Apple. Apple just doesn't seem to be very good at it. It's because I remember whenever I would use Spotify, I would put on the radio based on one artist or maybe even just a playlist that I had, and it would recommend some really good songs that matched
Mm,
the genre or the general
mm.
feel of whatever I put in the selection. Apple doesn't seem to offer that. It struggles a lot with that, and it just recommends artists that might be kind of related, but not quite what you're looking for in terms of music.
I think it's just because Spotify has been in the business for longer than Apple has, and they've been in this for years now, and Apple is quite new to it, still new to it. Although there are new features that are the stuff that we really like, but the calculations and the algorithms that they use maybe still has to be perfected. Um, and Spotify has just nailed it.
Yeah, I'm so torn between those. Hindi ko malaman kung saan ba ako pipirme, sa Spotify ba or Apple Music eh. In terms of recommendations, obvious, panalo Spotify. Apple hindi masyado eh. In terms of user interface, I prefer Spotify. Not just because of dark mode, but it just seems to be easier to just create, edit, and just browse through playlists than Apple
Really,
Music.
I for me it's the opposite. I feel like
You think so?
Apple Music wins for UI, and I like the new lyrics, the lyrics function that they have.
Mm.
So when you're on a song, you listen to a song, you want to follow along. I like how the lyrics just pop up and follow every line instead of how they used to do it before, where it's just simple text that was just laid out to you and you have to read it. It's really small text.
Yeah.
I don't know how Spotify does it now. How do they do lyrics now?
Well, I just started like a new account on Spotify because they sent me a. I don't know how they have it. They have my data. They sent me a 3 month free trial again, and I decided, okay, why not? So I'm using Spotify right now, and I'm just setting it up. But based on my previous experience and my current months long experience of just using Apple Music, I feel dumb because hindi ko siya ma-articulate ng maayos eh. Pero parang mas conducive lang to listening to music and to discovering music yung user interface ng Spotify compared sa Apple Music eh. And I feel bad because I can't put into words why I think that is. So far, it's just a feeling eh. Pero from what I understand about user interfaces and user experience, it tends to be the result that matters. If the result that comes out is yung intended result nila, which is, I guess, more engagement on the part of the user, that would be a good thing, right? Pero hindi ko siya makuha sa Apple Music eh. I find that I'm less engaged with just like being hands-on with my music when it comes to Apple Music. But as a Spotify, it somehow encourages you to fiddle with stuff. But that's just my experience, so. But for you, it's the
Uh,
opposite, you think?
yeah, I like the music experience, the experience, the user experience with Apple Music.
Do you use it on your phone or do you also use it on your bigger devices?
Well, I use it on my iPad and my MacBook. I used to use it on my what's this? My Apple Watch, but I feel like it was better on the phone. You can really tinker with it.
Mm. Well, okay. Well, music listening habits. Do you, well, the question is, when do you listen to music anyway? Do you listen to different music depending on the type of work that you do or activity that you do?
Well, I would say yes. Depending on the type. Let's say I'm jogging. I
Hmm.
wouldn't be listening to
You jog.
something that's like slow. You know. Yes, I jog, Andre. Yes, I'm healthy. I do stuff. I get off this chair
I meant nothing
sometimes.
by that question. There is no subtext to that. Please continue.
Goodness, guy get any? Anyway, I jog and I do a lot of exercising, and I want to feel a little hype when I'm doing this. I need some energy, so I need some energetic music. So what I put reggae. No, I put on
Reggae.
pop, some pop music. Like really nice. Usually around 128 to 130 BPM stuff. And if that
Very
doesn't get me
specific.
going, yes, I have very specific tempos for each activity. Like if I want to do some coding or some work at home, and I just want to sit down and do some browsing, I can listen to something around 100 BPM to 80 BPM.
What's some good
Sorry,
music that
80.
you listen to for that specific situation? Give us some examples.
All right, so let's say I'm on a computer and I'm coding and programming or doing something else. I would listen to uh, yeah, I would listen to Owl City. I would yeah, I'm still a fan of Owl City, the old stuff. I also listen to some of the music made by. Hold on, let me just pull up my playlist here. I listen to Charlie Puth actually. He has pretty good songs. Charlie Puth, if you're listening, please be a guest. Um, what else?
What do you listen for
La-
during workouts?
hold on. Yes, I listen to Lauv. I listen to Laney. A lot of electronic elements in there. Sometimes some Maroon 5. And yeah, I go back to my classics, the Totos and the what was I listening to? Dire Straits sometimes, I guess.
Okay, Dire Straits.
Yeah, they have really nice driving music.
I
But
have
when I
met.
work out,
Hmm.
I'm sorry, when I work out, I guess I like to listen to some Zed, some Martin Garrix, and some David Guetta, or maybe even okay. When it comes to rock, I would listen to some Paramore. There's some high energy in their songs.
So you're kind of a. Is it more of a general thing where you start work or you start a workout and then you just okay, let's go with that album or let's go with that playlist and you let play through.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Mm. For me, I'm kind of the same as you. When I work, I tend to go more on the. This is recent, by the way. I used to when I used to work on the computer, like some years back, it would always be like a mixture of post-hardcore, emo, and punk. But I don't know. I've kind of changed a lot since then. It's right now. It's Ken Ishii. No, he's like a Japanese electronic artist.
Mm,
He's more on the
mm,
techno side of things and the house side of things. It's really good for doing
mm.
graphic work, I've found. So like when I was doing some of the low effort, let's make that clear, low quality, low effort images for our podcast. That's what I was
Okay,
listening to.
okay, okay.
And then whenever I have to write and I don't want anything but complete silence, I listen to, I don't even know how to classify them. Is it ambient? It could be ambient. Taiko. Have you heard of Taiko?
Aren't they type of drums?
No, 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 they're not drums. uh,
So
It's a
there is a
music.
drum type called taiko. I'm not kidding. Google it. Taiko drums.
No, it's not a drum. It's a person.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
How can a
Well, it
drum
sounds like a
produce
drum.
music? It's just a person. It Taiko.
Drums can produce music. Can you listen to yourself right now?
You
Listen to
know,
the question. How can drums produce music?
okay. Taiko. So I listened to two specific albums, Awake and Dive, and this is purely instrumental, and it's really, really good for just setting the mood. If you just need to write and be relaxed, lose the tension. Uh, I'm a little more specific with workouts though. I only play two songs right now. Like while I'm drinking my coffee, I'm waiting for it to kick in. I listen to two songs. One is Big River by Van Halen, and the second one is Highly Strung by Orianthi. She's like, well, she's not like, she is an actual female guitarist. They exist, thankfully, who used to play for Michael Jackson. And she's branched out and doing her own solo thing. And this is one of her best songs. And she features Steve Vai on it.
Hmm.
So it's like a bunch of dueling guitarists playing a really up-tempo song just to get you pumped for working out. Also an instrumental. Um, so those two things, it's just enough time for the coffee to kick in. So I put the playlist on, start drinking my cup of coffee, and by the time the two songs finish, I'm ready to work out because I'm pumped.
Yeah. So well, music really does have an effect on someone, right? It doesn't.
Hmm.
It does have like an effect on the mood and
Some people are selective about music. Some people are cool with listening to just anything. I think both you and I fall more on the side of just, look, let's just be selective about the music we listen to. And some people are cool with that, some people not so much.
yeah,
But
yeah.
I've found that I personally prefer to do it that way.
But yeah,
Okay.
I do want to talk about one thing though. I want to talk
Mm-hmm.
about how music has been evolving through the years.
Okay.
Um, if you've heard of the rock before and then rock now, it's changing, and now we have electronic elements. We have electronic music. We have different subgenres of electronic music. It used to be just EDM, and now there's like so many different subgenres of EDM. There's electro pop. There's trance. There's uh, funk. There's what's this? Future house pop. So many types, and I know you've been listening to some electronic music as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what were your initial thoughts in this on electronic music as a whole? Um, what do you see? How do you see it going? In the future?
I don't know what's going to happen in the future because it's, let me put it this way. I'll start at the beginning. The first time I ever heard of any type of electronic music was on the radio. This was 99.5 RT there in the Philippines. I think there was one day in the week where they had 1 hour. They would only play uh, down tempo, downbeat music. They'd play drum and bass, and there they even came out with an album, like a chill out mix or something. I have that on cassette. Like, well, I had it on cassette. So it's a mix of artists like the Art of Noise, Thievery Corporation. They were really good. And back then, I was only listening to like classic rock, rock and roll, little bit of jazz, and that was it. I knew nothing of electronic music. And when I heard it, it was so crisp, it was so clean, and it just filled the sound stage like rock couldn't. So it was a breath of fresh air for me. So I started listening to more stuff like that, and I kind of stumbled onto Japanese techno, like Ken Ishii and a few other obscure artists that I forgot about that were more on the ambient side. So Kenny, she has staying power for me. He's got some really great stuff that you could just put in the background and work to, or he even has like some good albums that are good for workouts, like Metal Blue America. I've tried looking for it on Apple Music and Spotify. I'm just so disappointed I couldn't find it because it was that good. Um, in terms of electronic music and where it might be going in the future, I'm not an expert on that. I think you have more experience with the whole genre and any subgenres in it. But one thing that I can say is the people right now that I listen to that I really like, and you don't like them, but I like them a lot. London
Mm.
Electricity. You say they're like
So
Starbucks drum and bass. I don't know what you mean by that, but London Electricity are cool. I like them. And then there's Ramses B. He does glitch hop, a little bit of trip
mhm.
hop, and a variety of subgenres in electronica that are really, really good. But yeah, and I also like to listen to some of the stuff you introduced me to, like Porter Robinson. I like Zed, and I like Madian. Madian's really good, if that's how you
Mm.
pronounce his name. It's like,
Yeah, I think it's like Madian. Um, I think I got introduced to electronic music when I was in the arcade playing Dance Revolution
say that again.
and Dance Revolution.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I never knew it was called electronic music at the time. I thought it was just some generic music that was played, generated by the machine. Yeah, the Dance Revolution is really good music, very catchy, quite upbeat, and some really fast. And I said, what kind of music is this? And I looked it up, and it was electronic music, and it led me to Porter Robinson, Zed at the time, Skrillex, Adion, and then I had an Xbox, and the Xbox came with this game called Just Dance, and one of the songs was that I liked in the game was "Rock and Roll Will Take You to the Mountain" by Skrillex, and it was so fun to listen to, so fun to play, and I was like, how can a human being create so many sounds in a song? And it's so syncopated and so great. It's such noise to some people, but that noise can be turned into music. Like if you isolate every single sound, it's noise. But if you put them together, it's music. I said, how can I do this? And I was like, I wanted to get into this, and I took my laptop and I started downloading a program called FL Studio, and for trial version, of course. And my dad got me like his copy, which had like lifetime free updates. So I updated that, and I was like, okay, I got an updated version of FL Studio. That's work. Let's work. And I started self studying, and I wanted to sound. And this is funny. I wanted to sound so much like Skrillex because I wanted to do something like "Rock and Roll Will Take You to the Mountain." And every time I would let my friends from college hear it, they go, "Why do you sound like Zed? Like this song sounds so much like Zed." I was like, "Who's Zed?" I never knew who Zed was. Like, I want to sound like Skrillex. Like this has to sound like Skrillex, but it was too melodic to sound like Skrillex. So I looked up Zed, and then the first song that came up was Clarity, and then I fell in love with the song. I fell in love with the artist, with Zed, and I said, okay, I'm going to make more music like this. And I shifted from Skrillex making noise to Zed. So yeah, music for me evolved so much, and how I make music, and I think how people make music, the artists themselves. Skrillex has been changing the way he's been making music. Zed has been changing his sound. Charlie Puth has been changing his sound. Um, Bruno Mars has been changing his sound. I mean, every artist that you listen to, Justin Bieber has been changing his sound ever since he was a young child. He's went from baby to boyfriend. He went from somebody who sings really high notes to someone who doesn't even sing at all. He's just whispering in boyfriend.
Okay,
So
so when it comes to electronic music, if you were to recommend an artist or maybe two artists to the average person who's not familiar with the genre of electronic music, what's an artist that's accessible? who would you use to introduce an average person to electronic music?
Oh my goodness. Oh, this would be a bad question to answer because I'm gonna get so much hate if I say the wrong one.
Just say what you think is like a reasonable suggestion. Remember, this
Oh,
person you're talking to doesn't know anything about electronic music, but who would you use as to get them into the door, like the gateway drug to EDM or electronica in general?
hold on. I would say
You
Daft Punk.
Daft
I
Punk,
would,
okay,
yeah, Daft Punk. 'Cause they're like one of the originals of the genre.
that's fair.
Like you listen to Daft Punk, they have music then, they have music now, and it's very simple. They have really cool songs, both instrumental and with vocals. So I would start with Daft Punk and then make your way to whatever branch you want to go to.
I think Daft Punk's a decent choice because they got some really good stuff that's not too esoteric that people can ride along to. Like, you remember that video "One More Time," that song "One More Time" by Daft Punk?
Mm, yeah.
It was like completely animated. That's very
Yep.
accessible, and it could lead people to listen to more electronic stuff just because of that.
Yeah, I like their song. What is this? Um, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger.
I think that's part of the same album, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And for me, if I was to recommend an artist to an average person who doesn't know about electronica, it would be Madion because he's got a lot of pop-based songs in terms of composition. And I discovered Madion because of watching a tech YouTuber, MKBHD, the guy who does tech reviews.
Oh,
He
yeah.
uses, I can't remember if he actually used Madion songs in his videos or he just constantly would shout out Madion on Twitter. But I know that he's the guy I follow on Twitter. So when he said something about Madion, I immediately looked him up and I really liked it.
Hmm. Nice.
So another thing would be Passion Pit. You know the song
Oh,
1985,
yeah, 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 yeah,
or
yeah. It's
or
a
was it
nice
Pay No
song.
Mind? One of those. Passion Pit's really good. If you can get over
Right,
some of
yeah.
his well, I wouldn't say get over, but he has some stuff where it's just like utterly high pitched falsettos. Imagine the Bee Gees, but with electronic music.
Yeah.
I apologize for that to whoever may have hurt feelings.
1985 was a good year. The sky broke apart, then you appeared. Yeah. We're cutting that, right? Are we cutting it?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. So you recommend what was that again? You
Daft Punk.
recommend Daft Punk. I recommend Madion and maybe Passion Pit as well. So two words. But in terms of like recommendations, um, well, first, what's some music that kind of surprised you? You didn't think you would like that type of music, but you heard it, it got you hooked.
It's okay, go start.
Okay, so some of the music that's taken me by surprise, meaning I just didn't intend to listen to this type of music at all. I actually have some specifics here. I know that this was when I was about a teenager. Joe Satriani. First time I heard this guy was from his album Crystal Planet. Uh, to say I heard him would be the wrong thing because I got interested in the thing. I was already buying guitar magazines because I was trying to learn how to be a guitarist by then. I had teaching tapes, like I bought VHS tutorials. Yeah, VHS. I'm that old. Um, so I would read guitar magazines and I
You
would
heard it
see
from
his
here.
name.
Sorry.
That's
Keep
fine.
going.
I would be reading guitar magazines. I would see names of these guitarists being featured, and Joe Satriani was one of them. I walked into Tower Records and I saw a cassette of Joe Satriani's Crystal Planet. I remember it a lot because it was just like him on a white background. He's got his shades on, bald head, and he's got the slick guitar. And so, you know what? I took a chance on it. I bought it, put it in the car, and that album was a super solid instrumental rock album. Up to that point, I'd never heard anything like it. It was just a three-piece band. Joe Satriani, Stuart Ham, the bassist, and a really solid drummer. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name. Um, but man, in terms of composition, everything was just so tight, so well written. And so yeah, Crystal Planet is one of his best albums in my opinion, because anything I've listened to after that was kind of middling and a letdown compared to that one. So that's one of the albums that surprised me. Another one was a band called Doves and their album The Last Broadcast. Again, I had no idea who they were, but I think I just read something about them maybe in a magazine and the name stuck, but I'd not heard anything in terms of music before that. So I walked into a music shop, and again, I saw their cover of their album, The Last Broadcast, and I bought it based simply on that. Put it in the car stereo, and I was surprised at how good it was. This was a very poppy band from, I think, from the UK, and discovering Dubs led me to try and look for more Brit pop stuff, more indie pop stuff. So I started listening to Cold War Kids, Snow Patrol, and early Coldplay stuff based on listening to Dubs. And then here's like a third recommendation. Utada Hikaru, the Japanese singer. When she first came out, I didn't like her stuff. It was so pedestrian, like R&B and soul, and a mixture of Japanese and English. I thought it was really boring. But all of a sudden, out of the blue, she comes out with a new single called Sakura Drops. The video was just an incredible trip. And the song itself was just almost minimalist in how it was a mixture of techno and pop. And it was so good. So those are some of the stuff that took me by surprise. Never thought I'd like him, but there we are. And I'm still listening to him to this day. What about you, though?
I have a couple. I think the first one would have to be, and I think you mentioned this already, Coldplay. I
Mm-hmm.
never thought I'd like Coldplay because of the song styles, the way that they write, and the way he sings. Um, what's his name again?
Chris Martin.
Chris Martin. I just thought it wasn't like the usual way a person would sing, but I guess that's the way he sounds unique. And he has wonderful lyrics. When you listen to it, it's beautiful. And there's this one, Everglow. Everglow was that song that just made me tear up when I first heard it. Mm,
He is
yeah,
a pretty good lyricist. I'll give him that.
and the way the band delivers the sound, uh, arranges the sound, the music. It's just beautiful. Um, and I never thought they'd be really good. Um, I think the next recommendation, or sorry, the next type of music that I never thought would be that good is indie music. Yeah, there are a lot of indie musicians out there that are just like do not have, they're not getting enough recognition, and they're just really really good.
What about, do you have any obscure or underrated musical acts, songs, or artists that you wanna shout out to? Because sometimes when we get too stuck with the mainstream stuff that we hear, the more popular stuff, we fail to kind of just recognize there's some pretty good music that's just hiding under a rock somewhere out there.
I guess there are. If you just look at, if you go to spinning records and look at the talent pool, there's a lot of electronic music artists out there that are just not getting enough recognition. Like they're really really good. Like for example, Bally Bandits. I don't know if they're on spinning records though, but the Bally Bandits is a really great duo when it comes to electronic music. Tritono. Um, they're great with doing remixes as well. Uh, so many, just so many. I just think that if you listen to a lot of remix, try to listen to some remixes out there of some songs that are already live at mainstream music, and you'll hear a lot of great artists.
I hear you, man. I don't know if I've showed you this before, but there's an artist called City 17. They did a remix of Daft Punk's Doing It Right, and it was really good. It's like a really fast tempo drum and bass track. Doing It Right is the name. And then he has an original track called D Make. So look that up if you're on Spotify or Apple Music. It's really good. And speaking of obscure, I'll give you one. This is a Japanese artist named imoutoid. I'll spell it out in the show notes. And the only songs that in existence that this artist made that I know of are three songs called Part One, Part Two, and Part Three. Now here's the story behind that. So it's basically electronica, more on the synth pop side with a lot of vocal chops. But the reason, to the best of my ability, I've tried to look this guy up. He seems to be like an 18-year-old Japanese electronic artist who died of a heart attack before he could ever create more music. And the only reason I was able to find that was I was probably scrolling through, I don't know, looking for other electronic artists somewhere on the internet. I found him and he made his music available to download. So I'm going to try to find that and post it in the show notes because it's really, really good poppy electronic music. And oh, here's a fun one. Another Japanese artist named Sta, that's STA, who did some songs for the soundtrack of Citus, that rhythm game that you can get on
Oh yeah,
Apple
pretty nice.
and Android. It's great, isn't it? Uh,
Yeah.
it's a lot of fun to play. And if you do have to pay for it, then I don't know if it's like pay per stage. I know that I bought it straight up for one price. And Sta made the opening theme to Citus, the first version of the game, and the name of the song is Loom. He also contributed a song called The Silence, which is another really fast tempo drum and bass song, which is really good. If you can listen to the full version on YouTube, it's a lot better than the one in the game. And he also has a song that's not from the Citus soundtrack called Noise Proof. It's like another slow tempo electronic song that incorporates a lot of real instruments like guitars and string sections. It's really good. One last recommendation for me that's obscure or underrated is a Filipino band called Fusebox. That's one word and two X's in the end. They're like a progressive rock band with a female vocalist. They were first discovered on NU107, the now defunct NU107 radio station, back when they had a TV station of their own. So they had this program called In the Raw, hosted by Francis Brew, currently the guitarist of the Dawn. I hope I'm right. I hope he's still the guitarist of the Dawn. And they would highlight and feature indie bands from the local music scene. And it turns out Fusebox was on when I tuned in. They were amazing. It's progressive rock. There's many chord changes, many tempo changes, and it was unbelievably. It's like a great balance of melody and just a really, really synchronized attack, if you will. It's so good. So yeah. Anything else that you like to add on that end?
Hmm. Half Noise. That was the name of the band. Half
What?
Noise.
Half Noise.
Half Noise.
Okay.
Yes. And their song "Free the House." My
Okay.
goodness, it took me that long to get the song and the band name. Half Noise. Okay, listen to Half Noise. Oh my
Okay.
gosh, I'm sleeping.
Hey, you got there in the end. So check out Half Noise. Okay. How about this one?
Okay.
For you, what are some of the biggest albums that you listened to? Stuff that you really liked and stuck throughout with you throughout the years? Or even if it's just not an album, maybe just a song or several pieces
What
of
happened
music.
album?
Mhm.
I guess it's Zed's True Colors. Zed's album True Colors has like it's just beautifully written. Um, from each has its own character, has its own color. That's why it's called True Colors.
Okay.
It just has its own personality, and have a take a listen to that. And it's not a new album. It's done years ago, but this is what really stuck in my head, and it's always playing in my. It's in one of the songs. You know, um, it's always in my playlist. In any of my playlists, it's there. I love it.
So True Colors by Zed. You got anything else?
No, I think that's
Okay.
it.
So for me, I have a few recommendations here. It's like across a few genres. Some of the albums that have stuck with me throughout the years just because of how good they were. It's just like well written, quality production, and sometimes even conceptually solid. Okay, very first one is Dream Theater, their album Images and Words. So clean, so well written, and if you want a good introduction to progressive rock, I would say this would be the album to get, Images and Words. That's my personal opinion. And some of the songs that I would highlight is Metropolis Part 1 and then Under a Glass Moon. So it's very complex, intricately structured songs, but it's also so pleasant to listen to. It's obviously rock, but it's Dream Theater kind of like a high concept band. So they're very technical, and some of the lyrical themes would include like for the first song in that album, Pull Me Under, it was inspired by Shakespeare's Hamlet, and then Metropolis. I actually don't know if it has anything to do with the film, the classic film Metropolis, but I enjoyed it quite a bit. So there's so many changes in that song, and it was just building up to that epic ending. It's so good. And oh, here we go. I recommend something from Japan, from Lark and Ciel. So if you watch any anime shows, you may have heard a song from this band, but I'm specifically referring to their album Heavenly. So I don't know if it's available on Spotify or Apple Music yet because the last time I checked, they had pretty much all of their albums except for that album. And I was kind of confused why, but it didn't bother me at the time because I specifically bought that album from a Tower Records when they still had those. They're all gone now, but Heavenly is one of those albums that is just solid from start to finish. So if you know Lark and Sail, they're a rock band, but they vary their music from one album to the next. So sa umpisa parang dream rock sila or maybe like mystic rock, so to speak. And then they would change from album to album, from pop to rock, a little bit of hard rock to electronica. But this album, Heavenly, it's almost heavily inspired na parang new wave siya. So some of the highlights for that album would be Still I'm With You, Vivid Colors, and The Glass Drama. It's just very pleasant to listen to, a nice mix of new wave and light rock. Well, hints and notes of that across the songs. And then one other thing is, oh, Heavenly was for the longest time one of my favorite albums of all time. And then there's one album that I thought was just so solid that it kind of displaced that. It's from the indie band called May, so MAE. It's short for Multisensory Aesthetic Experience. They just let's just call them May. It's easier. It's called the album The Everglow. The Everglow is like a conceptual indie pop rock album. It's just it listens like a storybook album. If you were able to compose a storybook album in music form instead of just written form on a book, that's how they kind of laid it out. So from the CD packaging to the CD sleeve to the beginnings and the ends of the albums, one cohesive unit. And it's it's pop and it's rock, it's alternative, and it's very melodic. And some of the highlight songs from that album are Suspension and Anything. So this is a very upbeat, and it's an album that I walk away from feeling good after having listened to it. So, and fun fact, this was the first album that I ordered from Amazon, and I got it through the mail, and I was just so happy when I got it. I even paid a tax of 20 pesos. I don't understand what that was about, but yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, I've been, funny enough, I think pretty much everything I've been listening to recently have been all instrumental music, and kind of different genres, though, slightly different genres. Um, some of the best music I've been listening to recently is from Steve Vai and his album Sound Theories, Volumes 1 and 2, where he
Mm.
was accompanied by an orchestra from the Netherlands, I think. But it just added so much more to his songs. It was so good. Another instrumental act that I listen to a lot is Polyphia. I think you know this a lot when we were just driving around.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Post rock.
Polyphia, yeah. Uh, not a little bit, no, not necessarily, but instrumental rock. Um, but not like we tend to know instrumental rock to be. The album Muse and the song is James Franco. It's a really fun song. It's instrumental rock, but pop, if that makes sense. And then their album Renaissance, really, really good album. The standouts are the songs Light and Crush. And I got two more recommendations, also instrumental rock.
Mm-hmm.
Um, one is from the artist Intervals. The album is The Way Forward, and a song would be Touch and Go, the first song on the album. This is Intervals started out really heavy, like they have some crushingly heavy songs, but this album was just like a far, far, far call from what they previously were. It's super light, very melodic, and very enjoyable to listen to. And I don't know how you pronounce this. Do you pronounce it Pliny or Pliny? I'm really bad at that. I'm sorry if I'm mangling that name. One of the best albums I've listened to in recent years is Pliny's Handmade Cities. It's like a nice little conceptual album of a few songs, all instrumental, and it's tastefully done instrumental rock. Gent is a subgenre, and two of the songs that I recommend is Electric Sunrise and Handmade Cities. It just builds up from a really mellow start until it just becomes like an epic and soaring song for both of these two.
Mm-hmm.
And just like a final bonus, his, I think it's an EP, Sunhead, with his songs Kind, and then the second song would be Salt plus Charcoal. It's Pliny, whichever one of those two versions is a really good artist to look at if you want to get into instrumental guitar rock. Some really accessible stuff, a lot of fun stuff that he plays. So yeah, as always, we will put everything that we've mentioned in the show notes, if we can find them. If not, we apologize. And thanks for sticking with us. Hope you enjoyed the music that we've mentioned. So
Yes, I think I'm gonna end it with just a shout out to everyone who's listening, and thank you for taking your time to wait. Why are you listening to us? Why? I don't even know, but you are. So cool.